Keep Following Liberty Network. I'm Princess Kopo. So this is Madam Sara Belowsolow Yanti, Minister for Foreign Affairs, and she is here to address the audience about critical national issues.
And let me thank the Minister of Information, Culture Affairs and Tourism and all the officials of government here for this first conference. There are many points to share with you, so I will go as rapidly as possible in the interest of time. But noting with thanks that the Minister of Agriculture and the Chairman of the President's Commission for Investment are both here, along with the Minister of Information, all of whom were part of the delegation to Korea. The purpose of this briefing is to give feedback on Korea, but also to share key points as well as it relates to the work of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The visit to Korea was momentous. It was an opportunity for us to engage as a country bilaterally, but especially as it relates to the private sector space. And the history of Liberia and South Korea is deep, it's rich. I'm proud to be a Liberian and stand on the shoulders of those who in the 50s were recognized for our support to the Korean War, to South Korea. We provided logistics support as a country to Korea, and we're thanked. We're amongst 4 nations thanked by the presidents: Liberia, Ethiopia, Morocco, and Egypt are the 4 African countries that supported Korea during the war. And that acknowledgement didn't go on deaf ears as it relates to our delegation. We took serious pride in that acknowledgement of the Liberian support to Korea. I also want to use the opportunity to thank the people of South Korea, the government and people, because they were responsible for all countries of Africa. They supported 10 people for participation. They made provisions for air flights and supported accommodation for 10 members of our delegation, including our head of state. And it's important for us to recognize that, and they did that across the board for all of the countries. The meeting in Korea was it started out as, firstly, the Foreign Ministers Summit, very important. There were 3 different meetings. The Foreign Ministers Summit happened first, where the foreign ministers of Africa gathered to discuss the joint declaration, to discuss the Korean vision for the Partnership for Africa, and to give our inputs into that. And for that foreign ministry's participation, I'm glad I was joined by 2 of the assistant ministers here with me today, Sewa Bain and Charlotte Taylor joined me for the Foreign Ministers Summit. And we did participate actively, and we're part of the joint resolution that the heads of state delivered. The second part was the heads of state summit, and the third part was roundtables. We had Liberian business roundtables, and that's why it's important that Mr. Jeff Blibo is here, Honorable Blibo is here. This visit to Korea was not a pomp and pageantry visit. I'm proud to say that the Liberian delegation engaged deeply. From the day I arrived until we left, we're meeting companies, looking at private sector development, looking at foreign direct investment, looking at how we create jobs, talking about manufacturing, talking about technology, energy, and so forth. And I can tell you, behind me here, you have people who were going to the field, hours away from Seoul. We had the Minister of Agriculture, we had Blibo, we had 2 of the President's ambassadors at large, Chris Onanuga and Mohammed Ba, going to see factories, going to see manufacturing outfits. And that exercise resulted in the 7 MOUs that were signed while we were in Korea. Deep engagement, all feet in the mud, all sleeves rolled up. We worked very diligently, sometimes into the night, engaging on some of the issues with some of the companies. I'm also proud to say that our president was able to have a bilateral with the president of Korea. And in that bilateral, we were asked to develop a proposal for infrastructural development for the government of Korea. We were also proud to tell them that the work that Korea has done here in the past with the road through Cape Mount to Bo Waterside that was done by a Korean company, Daewoo, that road stood the test of time. And the quality of the work that Korea did before, we look forward to that engagement on infrastructure support, looking at the quality that will come with that particular work. Let me share with you that the announcement made by Korea for the amount of money that we spend in Africa over the next period, 24 billion, that amount of money, some MOUs were signed in relation to that. was a result of work done previously over the last year between the two countries. Since we've come into office, we've started to engage deeply. Liberia signed a partnership agreement with Korea back in the 80s under the leadership of President Do. And President Do visited Seoul and was conferred an honorary doctorate and so forth. Since that time, we have not had a full activation of that agreement, and this administration intends to do so. So we started the engagement on that. We're looking at the infrastructure proposal, we're looking at other sectors, and even in the next week, Minister Lutai, I will be engaged with the Minister of Agriculture. We had an initial engagement I did with the Minister of Agriculture, looking at how our bilateral engagement can be strengthened. And we'll be having a Zoom meeting very shortly. And I'm proud to report that as we come back, Liberia will now be extending to a membership of the Korean Food and Agriculture community. And as of August 2024, we'll be members of CashAPP. Also, the Korean Rice Belt. We are not part of the Korean Rice Belt, only 8 African countries, and with our membership in CashAPP, we're looking to be part of that Korean Rice Belt. Very important. And by November 2024, this year, with the deepening of the relationship, we're hoping to sign the Trade and Investment Partnership Framework with Korea that will open up the door for trade and investment. That's something that'll be work in progress. November marks 60 years of our relationship with Korea, and with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Korea and Ministry of Foreign Affairs Liberia, we intend to mark it with some MOUs and with some engagement around their financial support to infrastructure in our trade and investment portfolio. Also, for the Korean trip, I was able to spend some hours in Qatar, and I was able to meet the Minister of Transport of Qatar to discuss the possibility of Qatar Airways coming into Liberia. In addition to that, I was able to, with the President, discuss with officials of Thailand while we're on our way back. And already we've communicated with Thailand the fact that we need to engage bilateral cooperation on support for agriculture, looking at their vast experience with rice, cassava, and others, and we've already said they know for about to communicate to open up that door. The second point to share with you is that we will be receiving 3,294 metric tons of rice, the Kennedy Round Food Aid from Japan. That will be on June 18th. And this aid symbolizes Japan's ongoing commitment to the humanitarian support, but also the relationship between Japan and Liberia. Thirdly, the UN Security Council non-permanent seat. Liberia is officially vying for that seat for the term 2026-2027. We have put in place a campaign team. The structure of the campaign team is that I chair the campaign steering committee along with Deputy Ministers Gray and Yang, as well as Regional British Foreign Service Institute DG, as well as the permanent reps we have at AU, ECOWAS, and the United Nations as a steering committee. Under the steering committee, we have a campaign team that includes a team here in Liberia, a team at AU, ECOWAS, and the UN. I would like to ask Karishma Pelamrad and Sewa and Charlie come forward. Karishma is the chair of the home-based team. Sewa is the co-chair of the home-based team, and Charlene Taylor is a member. And I'm proud to say they're young women of Liberia. I really did need time for that. But the campaign team will be responsible for ensuring that we work across the world with division of labor responsibilities across the different locations to ensure that Liberia gets the votes to have a seat at the table, noting Liberia's recent work we've done on peace and justice in our campaign. Our campaign slogan is towards peace and justice for all humanity, conveying Liberia's dedication, commitment to peace and justice for the world, and looking at the fact that Liberia has demonstrated our sustainable peace through our recent elections, for which we thank President Weah and former President Weah and President Bokai, and looking at the fact that we've signed on for the World Economic Crime Code. We're leading by example, and we believe our space on the Security Council should be secure because we have demonstrated our commitment to peace and security. Thank you. Also, I would like to speak fourthly about the Liberians that recently returned from Ghana. As you know, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the LRRC have been seized on this matter. We had a situation where Liberians, some of whom were refugees, some of whom were in different categories, had been living in Buruburum, and the place was demolished and had been living in temporary shelter. I would like to thank the President Bokai, for his leadership in ensuring that resources were made available, and the Ministry of Finance under a dire situation of constrained resource envelopes, were able to repatriate 1,440 Liberians from Ghana. The total number registered 1,539, of which 261 were former refugees, or considered refugees. Now, the process has been led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and LRRC, but it's been supported by so many, and we thank the government of Ghana for the support, and the government of Ivory Coast as well. All of those who've been a part of the process of the repatriation. The Liberians brought home, the key word is Liberians. Home should always be home. And they are Liberians who have come from various circumstances, lots of difficulties, lots of trauma. Don't forget, when they ran from here, some of them have been living in very difficult situations. Some of them have been through difficult and strenuous conditions. Yes, there have been there was an arrest made for drugs, and we do know that some have come with the need for rehabilitation, some have come with the need for different type of support, health, and shelter, and all kinds of support. But the funding that we have been able to release is to support some of that. But I want us to remember something. Liberia is a country that has demonstrated our love for humanity, our love for others. And I just share with you today for Korea, when we didn't even have bilateral relationships for Korea, we went across the world to help them. Liberians, we must take care of our home. There's only one Liberia, and this Liberia is where all Liberians should find prosperity. No Liberian should have to stay somewhere else because they feel that home is not home. Home is home for all Liberians. And it's important that we continue to open up our arms, welcome our Liberians back home, and work together to make sure that they blend back in. Many of them have fears, they have some vulnerabilities and so forth, but we have to make sure that home feels like home for them, and it requires all Liberians to do that. I would like to also share with you that as we had with Korea, we'll be having with Japan, but Japan in August will only be the ministerial meeting, the foreign ministers meeting, but in September will also be China, the FOCAC, where we'll start with the foreign ministers summit, the ministerial summit, where we'll have the heads of state summit that will follow. But September will be a month of a lot of activities, because September is when we'll also have Summit of the Future, our president's participation, and he'll be speaking. ONGA will be happening in September, but also we might have a potential state visit to Canada in September, as well as a global diaspora conference that will be held in the US as well. So there'll be a lot of activities in the US, but last but not least, we'll be launching our campaign. We'll be launching our campaign in New York at the UN headquarters, telling the world that Liberia is ready to lead in peace and security. And no matter how much you all may not see what we see, I want you to know that Liberia is well positioned to be able to lead by example, and we must rebrand Liberia, the Liberia that supported Korea, and today they thank us for their peace and for their development. The Liberia that was a signatory to the United Nations, and Liberia that's been home to Nelson Mandela and others who were seeking refuge, and so many carry our passport because we helped everybody. Liberia must regain her position, Liberia must take her place, and Liberia must be rebranded as a leader, not a follower. And that's the Liberia we're trying to convey to the world. And we depend on the media to help us carry that message, that we want our seat at the table, we want to be in that Security Council, and we deserve to be there. Destroying Liberia's image will not help any of us. We can only build Liberia together, and it requires the media support as well. I want to share with you also that while I was in South Korea, we had extensive discussions on the diplomatic side regarding Liberians in prison, and it's linked to our passports. I asked them for a full listing of all Liberians in prison in Korea, because we might find that some there have carried out criminal activities with our passport, but they may not be Liberians. We also have diplomats in prison in Korea, and I've made an appeal to the government of Korea that our diplomats should be allowed to come and finish their term here in Liberia with our diplomats. So please be given the opportunity to come home, and I'll officially register that, and hopefully that will be granted to us. I want to say something to all Liberians listening to me wherever you are. I'm proud to be a Liberian. and you should as well. When you see people selling our passports, and you see people carrying our passports who's not supposed to have it, our ordinary passport transfers nationality. It transfers nationality. And every time somebody takes our passport and uses it wrongly, it reduces your chance of your mobility. We used to have ordinary passport being allowed access to South Korea without visa. Because of the abuse of our passports, that privilege has been taken away. I've asked the government of Korea to please reconsider reinstituting our visa-free privilege, noting that we're working on strengthening our passports, and that is a conversation that's ongoing. Lastly, the Minister of Information said that my party was not a member. I have to just make this statement. Yes, my party was not a member. The party I'm a part of was not a member of the original rescue team, but our party is a member of the UP Alliance and served as secretary to the UP Alliance as well. Thank you all so much.
So guys, I was the voice of Madam Sara Belowsolow Yanti, Minister of Foreign Affairs.